McCabe. I am the co-chair of the Transportation Subcommittee with John. I'm one of the former presidents of the association. And you all heard that this is being recorded. So if you find something of interest here as we move forward, it's available for future use. So before we get into the technical aspect of the presentation, do some housekeeping here on the Ohio Stormwater Association side. So for those that might be new to this on the call, the organization is made up of several subcommittees dedicated to advancing the management of stormwater and related natural resources throughout Ohio through education and watershed-based coordination and technical assistance. So basically, it's a resource. It is nonprofit and non-political in nature. So it is comprised of a board of directors. The current president is Regina Collins with the city of Toledo. Vice president is Teresa McGrady with Dayton, along with Secretary Dana Strayer with Stormtrap, Treasurer Bob Lentz, and the past president is Kelly Kubander. And then you can see the board members and their professional affiliations below. So it's a pretty simple process. We are a subdivision of WAMO, and the process would be to go through the Ohio Stormwater Association webpage, oswa.com, or WAMO's webpage. And there's an application here if you're so inclined and have an interest in the stormwater space. And the process would be, as you would see a form very similar to this, select your division affiliation, which would be the Ohio Stormwater Association, and your areas of interest. So there is a fee to register for this, but you would this allows you access to reduced webinar and technical information. So if it's of interest, there's the links to the organizations. So if you have questions, I would be glad to answer, or anyone on the board from the previous slide, just reach out to them. Several committees, conference committee, education committee, which is responsible for putting this webinar on, marketing, membership, regulatory, transportation, industrial, and extreme weather. So quite a range, but they all have cross-cutting into the stormwater and or water quality aspects. So if any of these areas of interest to you, we always will look to grow our membership and or our committee affiliations. So we've been in existence for a while, since 2003. So we've had some success, and we've had some false starts with recognizing people in this particular professional area. So if you work or know an individual or have been part of a project or part of a program that you feel deserves some recognition, we would ask that you use the QR code here, and it will take you to a simple form to fill out, and we want to acknowledge the professionals and projects throughout the state that will be announced at the Ohio Stormwater Association or Ohio Stormwater Conference in May of this year in Sandusky. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I believe, Kelly Kubander with Strand. She's going to say a few words, and then I'll jump back on. Kelly.
Thanks, Mark. I think go to the next slide. There's just a little bit of information there about Strand Associates. Mark said I'm Kelly Kubander with Strand Associates. I've been on the board of the Ohio Stormwater Association for a number of years. I'm the past president. I love being part of this organization. And obviously, Strand is a sponsor of the organization, and I would just encourage you to consider becoming a sponsor of the organization as well. It's been a wonderful endeavor for us to be involved in the organization as a sponsor, and I would encourage you to consider doing the same. I would also encourage you to consider getting active in the organization through some of the avenues that Mark just went through, getting you or some of your younger staff members involved on a committee. It's really a great way to get involved, and I would really encourage you to consider that. So thank you so much, and looking forward to the presentation.
Thank you, Kelly. So with it being a professional organization, we do have the ability to issue CEUs and PDHs for development. So that's another benefit of either being part of the webinar and or becoming more involved within the organization. So it's pretty simple to follow this path or this form through WAMO's webpage. And then the certificates will be issued, and then you've got documentation for your file to provide the proof that you attended this webinar. So with that, I am going to move and introduce our speaker. So I've known John for a while. John Prier is with the Ohio Department of Transportation in the Department of Hydraulic Engineering. John has been working in Columbus for 19 plus years in stormwater, water quality, stormwater research, design, and inspection and maintenance. So John is going to spend the next 40-ish minutes talking about some of the resources that are available that both he and I and others have been collecting and sharing through the library, as well as resources that he has and works on a daily basis within the department. So John, if you're so kind, please, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Let me get in and share my screen. There we go. 1 second. All right. Hopefully you're seeing my screen and it's about to go live. Mark, does that look right?
Yes.
Great. All right. Thanks everybody for calling in. I appreciate it. Like Mark said, I'm John Prier at the Ohio Department of Transportation. I play a lot in the MS4 permit world. I help out ODOT stay compliant with our MS4 permit, which is the same small permit that everyone else has, except the 4 big MS4s. Anyway, but at ODOT, well, there's a ton of resources that we have, and through the Stormwater Association, there's a ton of resources we pulled together in this library. So the point of this whole presentation is to basically make you aware that there is a library, and then show you some of the example things that might be there that maybe you could take advantage of. For either really easy training for the turnover you have and people new coming up. It should be like an obvious source, and or for audit prep, or really just to bolster your system. It's just to make sure you know that these are there. And the benefit of this association is that the library and the association is that it's not from Ohio EPA, it's not from ODOT, it's not from any other organizations. So we can just put whatever we want up there, and we've really put, I mean, as long as it's publicly available, a lot of very Ohio specific resources. So a lot of times if you just do a Google search for whatever you're looking for, you'll come up with a bunch of stuff from California or Maryland. And sometimes you're like, man, do I want to do what Montgomery County, Maryland's doing? And you probably don't. But if you want to know what Ohio's doing and have some Ohio specific examples, coming to these resources it can point you in the right direction more quickly. So just real quick, this is what our website looks like. This is just a screenshot of our web page. It's just, if you Google Ohio Stormwater Association and go to the library at the top, there's tabs. It's kind of bubbly looking on the right side, but it can get you where you need to go. You have it's kind of organized by topic and MCM. So today we're going to focus on MCM's minimum control measure. So in the MS4 permit, there's 6 minimum control measures. I'm not going to play around with minimum control measures 1 and 2, which are about public outreach and education. I'm going to talk about some of the resources we have for MCM 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is the maybe slightly more technical side of the resources. So we're going to go through 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to highlight some examples of the manuals and guidance documents we have, both from the public agencies, the state agencies, and other agencies, some of the checklists and templates that are out there, some of the example calculations, research results, and other really Ohio-specific documents. So the idea is spend 40 minutes with me, get a quick download of some of the stuff we have, and then if you see something you like or see something that might be valuable, you go back to the library and download a copy for yourself, or give me a call at some point and I can talk you through it. But we're going to start with MCM3, which for anyone new to the MS4 permit world, minimum control measure 3 is for illicit discharge detection and elimination. So basically, I'm not going to go through, there's whole other classes we have, some of them on the library, about kind of going into the details of what the MS4 permit says. But in general, for this one, Ohio EPA wants each of the 550 or so small MS4s to develop a plan to identify, find, and eliminate discharges, have a big map of all your pipes, your storm sewer pipes, and a big map so you're tracking all your home sewer treatment systems, your HSTSs, so your home septic systems. So that's a pretty big lift for some communities. Some have this under control, some don't. But let me show you some of the stuff we do have on our library. So Ohio EPA wants you to, have a plan, enforce that plan, make progress, and track that progress. So Ohio EPA, they realize that of the 540, 550, however many small MS4s there are, that no one's going to be perfect. And there's a lot of stuff written in the small MS4 permit. But they do expect everyone who gets audited, especially everyone, and in an audit, they expect this for you to have a plan, know how well it's working, make sure you're making things better, and make sure you have a way of enforcing that. So the library has example plans from other MS4s, right? Here's a Fairfield IDDE plan. So that was updated in March 2023. So you can go and look what Fairfield did and really put that up side by side next to your plan. Or if you're starting from scratch, say, okay, we need to have something that looks like this. There are plans on the library that you can use as a template. We have, as far as enforcement, there's information up there from uh, various sources on example plan enforcement and spill response. So what you do, what other communities have done for what they do if they find an illicit discharge and how to handle it. So don't get in and trying to look at any of the text on this. This is mostly just saying like, you don't have to start from scratch. There's almost nothing in your MS4 besides like your own organizational chart. Besides that, there's pretty much nothing you have to create from scratch for your own MS4. And if you're training someone up, they can look and see what other MS4s are doing beyond whatever documentation you have for your local MS4. So plan enforcement, spill response. Canton has this really detailed spill response, which we borrowed from their website at some point and didn't tell them about. But so this has their own phone numbers. You can't, this is their own information, but it shows the level of detail that if someone's out looking for discharges, what kind of information do they use to figure out where they should go next? When do they call EPA? When do they, have a freak out moment and say, we got to do something right now? Or when do they say, okay, we got to add this to our list of projects to do in the next 5 years? Kind of gives a rundown of what that the flow chart of what that city's doing. There's example public outreach out there. So even in your outreach to your community, which could be partially for MCM3 and partially for 1 and 2 for outreach, you don't have to create that yourself. You could steal the language from Ohio EPA or from wherever these are coming from, the examples we have up there for public outreach associated with IDDE or illicit discharge detection elimination. There's example maps of HSTSs, home sewer treatment systems. It's kind of hard to see there. There's the outline of the MS4s in the dashed line, and there's a bunch of tiny green dots where all of their mapped HSTSs are. So if you have an audit, Ohio EPA is going to say, where's your map and what does it look like? And you flash this up there and they say, they know enough that, okay, you're mapping where your HSTSs are. And they'll say, oh, it's interesting. They're all on the perimeter. That makes sense. Or if you showed a bunch of green dots right next to an otherwise sewage system, they'd ask you questions about that. But they want to see this map. If you say, oh, we don't have a map of our HSTSs, they're going to have findings on that for your audit and try to get you in compliance. So just examples so that you're not starting from scratch, or if you're working with your local GIS group, with your city or county or whoever you're working with your group, these are examples of what other entities have done. So, you're really thinking, is your illicit discharge and discharge detection elimination program ready for an audit? Do you have maps? Do you have updated maps? Did you create a map in 2013 and haven't updated it in 12 years? Can you show progress? Are you showing that have you done something in the past permit cycle, right? Have you eliminated some discharges? Have you made the environment any better? Do you need more internal resources or external resources, for teaching your staff what to do with illicit discharges, or teaching your homeowners in your community not to dump their oil down the drain, or things like that. There's at this point the MS4 program nationwide and certainly in Ohio is mature enough that there's really nothing you need to create from scratch. And so when we at the association find resources that we think are good examples or some of the best examples for you to use as a template or as an example, we put it up on the library. So if you want to go there and look around, it's a great place to get started, or to see if there's something you like about someone else's program that you want to incorporate into your own. So that was MCM3. I'm going to get into a lot more detail on MCM4 and 5, because that's kind of where I do a lot of my playing at ODOT on the construction and the post-construction side. So first on MCM4, which is the construction site runoff control. So this is keeping construction sites clean within your community, within your MS4. So Ohio EPA wants you to basically ensure I used an acronym. The CGP is Construction General Permit. Make sure the permit, erosion, and sediment control are met. So there's requirements in the permit that say you have to do, you have to have sediment controls, you have to have erosion controls, you have to have a SWIP, it's got to be approved, blah, blah, all this stuff. Ohio, the 12 staff members at Ohio EPA that are responsible for the thousands of construction general permits that go out dumped all that responsibility on the MS4s, because that's kind of how it trickled down, right? So therefore they are really Ohio EPA is really invested in making sure the MS4s are keeping track of the construction going on within their community, because they can't have really detailed oversight of the thousands of construction permits that are issued every year. So they require that of the locals, right? So that's why whoever is within the MS4 is supposed to have a process to review and approve SWIPs, stormwater pollution prevention plans on the construction SWIPs, and then conduct monthly site inspections. So have, however many open construction permits are in your MS4, someone from the MS4 is supposed to be putting eyes on it once a month, which is a pretty big lift when there's a lot of construction going on. So there are things that you don't want to waste time on bureaucratic administrative stuff. You want people in the field getting less sediment to the stream, protecting those fish, and at the association, the Stormwater Association, and through the library, we want to help you minimize the amount of time you have on preparing training and outreach and all that stuff. We want to give you as much as we have as is available, so you can spend as much time, actually helping the environment and keeping the streams clean, especially around construction sites. So Ohio EPA has a lot of material associated with this, which is great. And we're not trying to steal any thunder from their website. They have their website that they keep up. ODOT has a website. Everyone has their own website with their own documentation. This is just saying, okay, if you want Ohio EPA's website stuff and ODOT and random cities guidance, there's no other website for us to house all of this stuff. The association is providing that resource, right? Because all the different agencies can't just blatantly host every other agency's material. So anyway, Ohio, there is a fire alarm at ODOT. Give me 1 second. Sometimes it turns off, otherwise we're in trouble. Give me just 1 second. This is good timing. Wait, it turned off. I'm gonna sorry about that, everybody. That's the fun of webinars at ODOT. We'll see what happens. I think we're gonna be okay. If I smell smoke, I'll leave. So don't worry about that. All right. So Ohio EPA has this sediment basin compliance spreadsheet where they go through in detail how to design and calculate a sediment basin. So this is great if you're a SWIP designer or get into the weeds of how to control sediment on your site. It's also great if you're a SWIP reviewer or a site reviewer, and you can just go out and look at skimmers and look at a basin and say, oh, I think that looks good. Or you can say, if you're reviewing the SWIP, does it have the right amount of volume? If something smells fishy, it'll take you 5 minutes to go download this spreadsheet, plug in a few numbers and say, they have 10 acres draining here. Maybe they should have more than this, bathtub full of water, or their skimmer doesn't look quite right. So there's some information here that you can go for either detailed design or just review. They have, regulatory guidance in here for this compliance spreadsheet for design storms and storage volumes, and the design guidance to get into the weeds for basin geometry, slope guides, and freeboard. So if you come out to if you're a reviewer, or let's say you're a construction site inspector, or you're training a construction site inspector, and they come out and they say, hey, I went out to a site that's got a sediment basin with vertical walls. You can go straight to this document and say, I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to have vertical walls. That seems dangerous and weird. Maybe consider using Ohio EPA's guidance for, what the slope of the minimum side slope maybe shouldn't be more than 2-to-1 for one of these sediment basins. So things like that come up from time to time. You have for training or for whatever purpose this document's available. ODOT has this temporary sediment and erosion control BMP estimator. SEC is sediment and erosion control BMP estimator. And this is fun. ODOT uses this all the time for estimating the size and cost of temporary erosion sediment controls on ODOT projects, because we have to pay someone to do it before they start doing the work. So it's got good information on sizing and costs associated with sediment base, sediment traps, seeding and mulching, filter fence, ditch checks, rock channel protection, silt fence around resources like wetlands and streams, inlet protection, construction entrance. So it's got a lot of good information on sizing and costs of these things. And it's really straightforward. So really prescriptive and really easy to follow. And it's even got like a guidance document attached to it. So you can say exactly it's obviously focused towards transportation projects, but it's usable for everybody. You can say, okay, why are they choosing this many construction entrances or this many whatevers in this area? And how much do they think it's going to cost? And how big is it going to be? What's the quantity of rock? Some really, if folks working on transportation projects are using this, but if you're working on regular site design, you might not know this exists, and it might be really have some useful information for you to at least check your numbers or incorporate into whatever sizing you're doing. Ohio EPA's got a construction SWIP template, which they kind of publicize. And all these individual things have been publicized with other webinars over the past 5 years. But it's easy to forget about it. And there's probably some new staff you have in the past 5-10 years that haven't seen every single webinar that we put on and that every agency is putting on. So go send them to the library to play around for an hour, and they'll find all kinds of fun stuff to keep them busy. But Ohio EPA has this construction SWIPs template that goes through how to create a SWIP and what things should be in it. They have a SWIP checklist, which is a little big for my taste. I know there might be some folks from Ohio EPA on, and that's fine. This is a big checklist. It's got everything. So some people use more compact checklists, but you can certainly take this and say, okay, am I checking, for all these different things? And the really great thing about their checklist is it references the specific parts of the permit. So you don't have to guess, like, am I doing this because Ohio EPA said they wanted pretty flowers on my site, or am I doing this because the state of Ohio, has this code which is documented in the, in the law effectively and in the permit, and it's a real requirement. So you can get to all that things there. TMACOG up in Toledo area has this erosion sediment field guide, which they've had for a long time, but has great information, especially for new folks, about real life photos of when this looks bad and when this looks good. When you're out at a site or training someone to go out to the site, what should it look like and what shouldn't it look like? Construction entrances, erosion sediment control, where you have sites that show like erosion running off and properly stabilized, silt fence, the really the most common problems that you run into. So as you're getting your inspectors trained up, there's all kinds of classes and training, but this field guide exists, someone pulled together. If you want to send your folks out with a field guide, you can use this one or a different one. Geauga has this erosion sediment control field manual for BMPs, which has again more pictures, of good practices, storm drain inlet protection, and bad practices where you see the sediment going around the hay bales and getting right into the stream or into the pipes into the stream. Filter socks that are working great and filter socks that aren't working great. So this is all obvious stuff, and you've seen this on presentations before, but it's available on the library, basically. So you can go look through these. So Ohio EPA and ODOT has all kinds of design spreadsheets and real detailed things, templates, checklists, some of the locals. We have the things we liked most um, from local sources, not just statewide. So it's, if you're looking to be a SWIP designer, it's a good start. It's probably all the information you need to be a SWIP reviewer, and a lot of the information you would need to construct site inspections, and definitely sufficient to start to bring new staff up to speed on what we're talking about. So we'll get into it here in just a second. There's going to be the first question that we're going to post in the chat. But thinking of MCM4, you know, is your program ready for an audit? Could you use any of these things in the library, to any of these checklists to bolster your program? Maybe there's things they're doing that make their program easier that you could use. You know, like I said, we do webinars all the time on different individual aspects, but we put the good stuff on the library. A lot of it's good stuff, but we put the stuff we like best. Or if your program has done something and you want to share it with others and save them time, you know, there's a way to upload things to the library. Mark and I kind of approve what gets uploaded, so you can't so we'll take a look at it first. But you know, all those things. So you guys see a question just popped up. So the first question is, you know, on the library, what could the Ohio Stormwater Association include in the online library that would be most useful to you regarding MCM4, which is construction site stormwater control? So I'll try to not talk too much while folks are typing, but so this is how you justify that you were here for PDHs. But the question is, like, of all the stuff we saw, what's your favorite? What can your program use? And I'll actually go back and look at these. We're using this for purposes of tracking attendance, but also, even if you're not getting your PDHs, if you want to plug something in, you know, Mark and I are always fishing for more stuff to put on the library. We have about 170 documents up there now, and I know some people are using it from time to time, but it's generally an underutilized resource that the association puts up. But it could be really useful for inspector training, contractor training, SWIP designer training, inspection forms, consistent communication. Yeah, just getting everyone in your program on the same page. So I'll let everyone keep typing. I know you have to type whole sentences. I will read every single one of these later, probably. And it's great that the ODOT is not burning down, so that's a plus also as we're waiting. So we'll give you another few seconds to work on that. I think about a little over half of you have responded, which I appreciate. And if you don't want to respond, you do what you feel. It'll be fine. All right, I think it's slowed down. We can probably end the poll. If you have other things, well, a few more people are typing. If you have other things that you want to send me later, certainly I'm always available. But I think we'll move on with the next MCM. I'm going to end that poll. I'm not going to share the results because that seems difficult. All right, let's move to the next thing. Uh-oh. Okay, we're good. All right, so now we're going to talk about MCM5. So this is my favorite. This is post-construction BMPs. This is where I spend most of my time. So I am deep in this world every day. So what Ohio EPA wants you to do through the MS4 permit is to develop, implement, and enforce this BMP program for development. So most projects that get NOIs, that get coverage in a construction zone permit, need to have a post-construction BMPs. So the MS4, again, there's 12 folks at Ohio EPA that are responsible for making sure that, you know, I don't know, 1,500 projects a year have the right BMPs. So they can't do that. So they dumped it on the MS4s, and the MS4s are responsible for a smaller number, but it still can be big depending on how much development's going on. But you're responsible for making sure that your people know how to design BMPs, that someone is reviewing to make sure that design is done. And that not only that you track and inspect that the BMPs were constructed and that they're maintained and that you have a map of all of them. And sometimes if your TMDL if your area has specific TMDLs, total maximum daily loads, and you care about specific pollutants, sometimes you care which different post-construction BMPs handle which different pollutants. We have a ton on this. Everyone across the country is doing this, so there's a lot of really good information that's being updated regularly. Ohio EPA has this great design spreadsheet, which I like Excel because it's simple and you can tweak it and it's easy to play and it's easy to know exactly what's going on. So they have design guidance for all their normal, mostly used BMPs, detention basins, wet basins, wetlands, bioretention cells, infiltration, BMPs, and permeable pavement. And these are easy to use. They've made them with as few cells as possible. And they're not just for design, they're also for documenting design. Most of these are developed in a way that you can print from here and use this in your report, on your SWIP or your drainage report for your project. It's got information that immediately show compliance or no compliance. Sometimes BMPs seem flowery and fancy and extra things going on, whatever. They're not as complicated as everyone thinks they are. There's relatively simple hydraulics going on most of the time, and you can show that discreetly in a spreadsheet. So these do that. There's no way to hide anything. You just, if your BMP has this much volume and an orifice this size, it's going to act like this. And that's, that hydraulics has been pretty well figured out for 200 plus years. So it's a good resource. Okay, ODOT's got this BMP design spreadsheet, which we use for all of our transportation type BMPs. I will say there was a lot of inconsistency before we had this. And once we put this out at ODOT as an agency, once we required this, and I know some locals have their own requirements, but we don't actually require this. We just put this out as a voluntary use. And I would say 90+% of our projects use this spreadsheet, and compliance with design has gone from 50% compliant to like 95% compliant just by making this, step-by-step, easy to use resource available. So I don't know what the level of compliance the different MS4s have on post-construction BMPs. Maybe it's just the fact that they've been around longer and there's more institutional knowledge, but having a consistent way to document design and, to do the design and document it, at least at ODOT, has been a huge improvement in overall compliance. And it's got spreadsheets, different tabs for, it's where you can document the different BMPs, and it's got little BMP design considerations at the bottom that said, hey, did you remember about this? Did you remember about this? It's to make the most important parts of our manual, the ODOT's manual, really visible for the folks crunching numbers, working in CAD, doing the figuring out slopes and all that stuff. So it's been wildly useful, and it's made review way easier. It's made compliance way easier. I've heard it's made design way easier. So, it's really, I don't want to say triple bottom line or any of that. It's made it cheaper for everyone. It's made compliance. It's helped the environment and saved money. So implementing some of these practices that make, design more consistent and review more consistent is just a kind of a no-brainer for making everything easier and helping the environment. And those kind of solutions are the ones we like. I used to go out and do these all-day BMP design classes where I would go talk at some live thing in front of 100 people or so, and go through these 9 or 10 different PowerPoint slides for 6+ hours. And it's a lot to listen to me talk. You guys have to listen to me talk for like 45 minutes, but it's a lot to get up and talk for a whole day. So anyway, all of those latest and greatest PowerPoints are on this library. You can get into, really, if someone's trying to learn this, or the purpose of this is we use this at ODOT to train people how to do actual design. So it gets into the weeds, on where the regs come from, how to do BMP selection, preliminary calculations, and then how to get in detail on how to design on these different post-construction BMPs with specific design examples, right? This is a real project that has a real BMP that has real numbers. PowerPoint presentations are great. And this is a PowerPoint presentation, but it's based on, CAD and math and real things. No bubbly, rectangular site that has a perfectly shaped detention basin on the end. These are real sites with real BMPs. So they've been real useful on documenting, okay, when we say this in the L&D, or when the guidance says this is exactly what we mean. We have it for vegetative filter strips. We have it for vegetative biofilters. I know a lot of the locals are not using those BMPs except on transportation projects, but we also have one for detention basins, and this follows very closely to detention basin design for site developments. It's got example CAD sheets with, all the information that a contractor would need to build this detention basin correctly. So as a reviewer, this is a great resource. As you're reviewing something, you can look at some other resources from the library and say, hey, did they specify the diameter size of the orifice or the height, or do they have this, this forebay and micropool shown? Do they have it documented? Some reviewers, if you haven't seen a lot, could use some help in saying, okay, do they have these 12 pieces of information on the CAD view, on the plan sheet I'm looking at, documented? So here's an example of what it should look like, and on a real ODOT project, the real data that was included to really get a contractor to design this detention basin correctly. All the background detail on the background design information about, stage storage curves and drawdown curves, all that stuff. Ohio EPA has more information up there, and a lot of this is on their website and our website, and you can go straight to the source if you want, or you can go to the library and play. So runoff reduction spreadsheets, alternative BMP submittal forms, routine maintenance exclusions. These are things that once you're in the world for a while, you maybe don't need to go looking at these. But for someone who's 1 or 2 years in, they might not even know a routine maintenance exclusion list exists, or that there's a way to look at alternative BMPs if you get in a real weird spot. The runoff reduction method that Ohio EPA has lots of documentation and a good spreadsheet on it. Ohio ODOT, we developed these checklists for projects. So if you're a reviewer, we have checklists that say, okay, have they provided these figures? Have they provided these numbers for each of these BMPs? These are the numbers we want to check to make sure compliance. And this could be if you're a designer, you can document it this way. If you're a reviewer, you can just click through and say, did they give me a 4-bay volume? Did they give me a micropool volume? Like, how do I know if they were compliant? So these are things we use today. And, like I said, compliance on our design side has increased dramatically. ODOT has this O&M manual for post-construction BMP inspection and maintenance. Now, this is transportation focused, but it's got the same BMPs. It's got bioretention cells, detention basins, wet basins, the whole thing, and a ton of photos, looking at good and bad things and the specific maintenance activities that should be taken when you find bad things. So, photos of manufactured systems, hydrodynamic separators, these are the common things that we see when we are inspecting and reviewing post-construction BMPs. So, this is things we're seeing every day, and these are what we're giving to our, 100 or so staff, maybe 150 staff at ODOT that are out inspecting and maintaining post-construction BMPs annually. So there's no reason that every other entity couldn't use that. I know most of the other MS4s own transportation-related BMPs, and a lot of these, even if you don't have a bunch of vegetated, or, grass ditches or grass side slopes as your post-construction BMPs, most locals have manufactured systems and, detention basins. Not only do we have this manual, but we also put it in a training form. We have ODOT has these 3 BMP training modules, one for, what is a post-construction BMP, one for how to inspect, and the third one's for how to maintain it. Each one is online and on demand. They're on Ohio Learn, which is, through a few annoying steps, is publicly available to everybody. So if you have new staff, or if you're getting ready, this is an easy 3 hours to put in front of them. Say, someone already made a class for you to take. You can go take today. Any one of you could get logged onto this in about 10 minutes of effort. And then you're taking these 3 modules. So for staff turnover, to know what ODOT's doing, to know what, transportation agencies are doing in your MS4, or just to improve your program, this stuff's available, and we've done webinars on it. I've promoted it before. It's been around for a few years now, since 2022. But certainly there are new folks since 2022 that are playing in this world. So it's good to know that exists. It's got, some bubbly documentation where you can see a little detention basin there. But each one of those black things in the bottom right of that detention basin, you can click on that, piece of trash or that lightning bolt that is supposed to look at erosion, ruts, and gullies, and see a real picture of erosion, ruts, and gullies at a detention basin, a picture of it good and a picture of it fixed, real picture of ponding when it's a problem, or a clogged outlet, real things. And you can see real description of the type of maintenance activity that might be used to fix that. So, and we even reference, for ODOT's world, our construction material specification, our spec book, with a specific spec that says, okay, this is the spec you're looking at to fix this. So it gets, you can go as light as you want, or really into the weeds here. We use it all the way to, complete maintenance. So it's got a lot of what you would need. The kicker is it's on ODOT Learn, Ohio Learn. which is easy to access for all of our state employees and a little bit of a pain for everyone who's not a state employee. But we realized that, and we made a, how to access spreadsheet, which is on the library. These modules are not actually on the library because they're hosted in like an on-demand on, as our training platform through that Ohio runs, and then ODOT has like a sub thing under that. But we put a document on the library that just goes step to step how to create an account, how to log on to the account, how to find the training, and how to access the training. We put that out 2 years ago, and I don't get the sense that too many folks outside of ODOT are utilizing this, because it's a little bit of it's not a YouTube click. You can't just send someone a link and have them click on it, but it is a real resource. And for everyone who's got new staff, it is such an easy way of incorporating some training into your program. And for those who work in this post-construction BMP maintenance world, there's a lot of stuff there that might be, oh man, we could use that. Or I want to, I see that, I want to call John up and ask him for exactly what ODOT's doing there. And then I just send you something and make your life easier. So that's the whole purpose of this, is bringing all this stuff together to hopefully make your job easier for MS4 permit compliance. And for all those, I focused a lot on Ohio EPA and ODOT. There's also things from the city. So City of Fairfield has an O&M template that we put up there, where they talk about the inspection report they want for privately owned BMPs and the things they want to check specifically. City of Columbus has a detailed one this is for dry detention basins, what they're supposed to do. Some of those things, different entities are different, right? So ODOT gets out and looks at a lot of our BMPs, once or twice a year. Some of these local inspection manuals might say, once a quarter or once every 2 weeks. So ODOT's not doing anything once every 2 weeks besides, like filling potholes. So, but it's good to know kind of the example of what City of Columbus is doing and what City of Fairfield's doing, what Ohio EPA has, what ODOT has, and then your own program, you can pick and choose what you want from any of those. I got into a little bit of the discussion of performance of these BMPs. We have a lot of information from the International BMP Stormwater Database and research projects that are Ohio specific about the performance, efficacy, the effectiveness of BMPs for different pollutants, for nitrogen, phosphorus, things like that, and the different types of BMPs and how good they are. This is really high level, so don't worry about what those dots mean. But if you get into this document and you're curious, you have a TMDL for phosphorus, or you're in the MALME and you really want to really promote phosphorus, this can pretty quickly tell you, okay, these BMPs are good. These BMPs are not going to do too much for phosphorus. Or, this is from 2013, so it's old, but it's still really good information if you want to know about, the cost for BMPs and the cost to remove, a certain pound of metal or nutrients. This is what other entities are saying. Okay, it's great that maybe a dry detention basin costs you $50,000 on your site, but maybe it's maybe if you want to know the cost per pound of whatever nutrient of nitrogen or whatever, you can get to it and say, okay, this is what this means. I like these a lot because sometimes folks are saying, let's put in more bioretention cells. And I'm always looking at, for phosphorus, what's the cost of removing phosphorus, in a bioretention cell? Is it $43,000 per pound? Maybe we got to really try not to send that phosphorus to the stormwater, because $43,000 a pound is a lot. So we'll get into that. The next, sorry, I'm moving. We'll put up that next question there in the chat, please. So, thinking of all this stuff, what parts of this do you like? So I don't know who's running the chat. If we could, there we go. Perfect. So basically, what parts of this do you like for MCM5, for post-construction stormwater training, or post-construction stormwater management? Are we talking about, are you most interested in training staff, actually improving construction of BMPs, maintaining BMPs, mapping your BMPs, all that stuff? Are you really interested in, pollutant performance, all that fun stuff? And I know we're getting close on time, so I'm going to bust through MCM6 here in a second. But I'll give everyone a second to to talk about this if you want. So basically, which of these things do you like most? Is there anything you would like more of? Do you want more example? I think a lot of people say they want more design examples. Designers say that. I talk to a lot of engineers. They want more and more. So I know at ODOT we've put more into that, but do you want more training slides? You know, all that stuff. So give everyone a second to throw an answer in there. And some of this, I'm sure, really by looking at the numbers, most of the people on this call probably haven't reviewed the library too much, probably haven't downloaded too many things. So some of the things you might want exist. But if if we see a lot of people putting in something that doesn't exist, Mark and I will go find it somewhere or go try to create it. So there's real action being done here. All right, we'll give it another 10 seconds or so. Move on. All right. Thank you everyone for submitting your answers. It's like 70% of you submitted. That's really good for these polls. So thank you. All right. So MCM6. So this is good housekeeping, pollution prevention, good housekeeping. So this is all the stuff you do at your locally owned like garages and everything. So keeping Ohio EPA wants you to keep municipal operations clean. They want you to have a map so you can like make sure you're keeping your facilities clean, have spill prevention plans, O&M plans, and then they want you to train staff, mostly so staff aren't dumping oil and cleaning fluid down the drain, and that when there is a spill, staff know what to do. So there's all kinds of things on the library, some information on salt brine protection, fuel spill prevention. I'm going to rush through this. Sorry. So there's a little bit of time for questions. You know, training for staff, or what folks are doing for municipal employee training. There's example facility SWIPs. You can say, okay, we need a SWIP, or our SWIP doesn't have the information we need. What does this SWIP look like? This is an ODOT facility with a real SWIP, real ODOT facility. What do they have on here? How do they use it? So I went quickly on purpose there because I know we're getting close to the end, and this is close to the end. So we can put up that I know there weren't nearly as many things for MCM6, but there's a lot of information. There's a lot of example plans up on the library and a lot more available. So are there specific things for your MCM6, your street sweeping, culvert cleaning, catch basin cleaning, facility training? What kind of things does your community, your MS4 want most? Do they want example SWIPs? Do they want example training? Do they want, presumably there's 500 so MS4s and a bunch of them are combined. So we should have, like literally thousands of facility SWIPs that are relatively publicly available. I mean, they could all be FOIA'd. So like if you want help with your facility SWIPs, you should be able to get access to what other people are doing. Or if you want help with training, we have literally thousands of staff people across the state that are doing the exact same thing. So the idea is to put the best here on the library and then make the rest of the staff, the rest of people doing this, not have to spin their wheels. And to make audits easier and less painful. Ohio EPA wants that. MS4s want that. And big picture, I like the environment. So if we can make helping the environment, easier, if we can we could put all the administrative bureaucratic burden up on the library and reduce that as much as possible, then we can spend more time and resources on, keeping our fish happy, which is where I'm at. So I'll give you guys some more time to answer that. Thanks again for filling out these poll questions. I know it's not like a click A, B, C, or D. You have to actually type something in, but appreciate it. And if you just want your participation, just type in some random word and we'll know that you participated, but didn't want to answer this question, which is fine also. All right, give this another 10 seconds. Then we'll get towards the end. So I know I always speak way too quickly, but I'm just basically scattershotting a bunch of information out there. And then, pick what you want. You know it's out there now. You know that there's some stuff out there, or give Mark and I a call for more information, or to ask. That's the other thing, is if you ever are looking for something specific, you can go to the library. But if you call me, I know what's up there. I can tell you exactly what Ohio does and doesn't have. And I work for the state. I'm a public servant, I guess, whatever that means. But anyone's allowed to call me. I don't just work on ODOT projects, and I field calls all the time on post-construction BMPs on non-ODOT projects. So, take advantage of this resource. So that's my contact information. This is the end of the slides, but you can just also type in like ODOT hydraulic engineering. Yeah, there's not that many of us, right? So I help out the folks at ODOT. I help out a lot of the folks across the state, but I think most people don't realize how many resources are readily available. And that's not even getting into like the research we're doing across the state. Which some of that's up on there. I'm not talking about that during this presentation, but there's just a lot out there. So I'll be quiet now. Mark, you can take over with if there's any questions or the final slides.
Sure. So thank you, John. As John mentioned, just a slew of information, and we're trying to be that repository for it to save you time and energy to go and get it. So, John, if you would stop sharing, I will share. So we're at the point, if you do have any questions for John, please put them into the chat and we'll pick them up there, or unmute, I suppose, and we can do it that way as well, or email them to John or myself. I did not put my contact information, but we will find a way to get that information to you. Any questions?
Mark, there are a couple in the chat. You want me to?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm seeing them. So
You're seeing them, John? Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
Flo asked, let me go through some of these. Do MS4 count street sweeping to meet TSS requirements in the TMDL? Yeah, definitely. So we don't have any numerical limits, right? Right. So for any of the pollutants, so all of the requirements so there's not like you have to remove X number of pounds of sediment. So all the requirements in the MS4, small MS4 permit are narrative. So Ohio EPA and MS4s do count street sweeping as one of the many things that you can do for TSS, and street sweeping is required for other reasons. So they do work towards the TMDL. Ohio EPA really just asks that if you have a sediment TMDL, that you know that, and that you're doing things that are focused on sediments, and street sweeping would be one of those. So definitely that would be count towards progress, I guess. Okay, where was that ODOT online training for stormwater inspection? Yeah. So it's on Ohio Learn or ODOT Learn. Don't do that. Go to the library and find under the tab for, it's split up by MCM. Go to the tab for MCM5 BMP, and there's BMP post-construction BMP like maintenance, and then post-construction BMP O&M, and then like design. Go to the O&M one, and then there's a PDF in there of basically how to access that, and that will show you how to access that training, because it is a little cumbersome to get access to the state's training website. But once you get access, there's all kinds of things. You can get trained on all kinds of random ODOT things. There's plenty of public facing stuff out there. So Ben, if you have questions about that, feel free to shoot me an email. But if you look to the library to that PDF, hopefully you'll be able to find it. Thanks, Katie, for putting that up there. Flo, you asked, are there other ideas to reduce TSS other than street sweeping? So, coming from an MS4 standpoint and TSS, from my standpoint, anything you can do to bolster your MCM4 construction, like all the stuff on post construction, even street sweeping, it's kind of a drop in the bucket compared to the TSS that you'll see on the construction side of things. So having good sediment protection, and especially sweeping or cleaning around construction sites, that's like orders of magnitude more sediment than area-wide street sweeping. So if you have TSS sediment TMDLs that you're really interested in, I would really focus on MCM4 and shoring up construction practices. I think those are the only two questions we had in the chat. People are welcome to unmute and talk to the other 85 people on the call if they want.
Yeah, looks like I'm struggling here. I got out of my presentation mode.
You're fine. People can see it. We're in the last few minutes, Mark, so don't worry too much about it. Q&A looks about the same one way or the other.
John, there was a question from Lashana in the chat.
Sorry, I missed.
Hi.
what-
Hi, John. I was just wondering if people had resources that they would like to add to the library, how would they go about sharing that information?
Yeah. So there is. I could share. Well, I don't know if I want to do this live. On the library, there's a way to upload. So you basically like log on, and anyone can log on, and you can upload your resource to the library with a little information. And then Mark and I get an email. It says, "Hey, someone uploaded that. Do you want to publish it?" Basically, and then Mark and I will put it in the right place. We don't get very many of those. So if you have that and want to start doing that, there's a place in the library to do that. You can also email me directly. I run into a lot of this resources just in what I do every day for work. So I'll post the latest and greatest. But I mean, it would be great if more MS4s were, proud of whatever they had created and said, "Hey, we want other folks to have access to this." Even if you paid a consultant to do it, it's your product, so we can put that up there. I know sometimes a lot of people, sometimes people like sharing their things, and there's a lot of stuff out there that hasn't been shared. Mark and I, we could have had that library have 1,000 documents, but that makes it kind of hard to get around there. So we're trying to put, the kind of the things we think are most useful up there. So basically there's a way to upload documents in the library itself at the bottom of that web page, or send Mark and I an email directly.
All right, so I've got some housekeeping to do here at the end. John, thank you. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the participation at the polls. And just thank you for attending. So just some housekeeping here. There are more than one way to get involved. Sponsorship is one way. So you can see some of the corporate sponsors here for 25. So if you're interested in maintaining a connection here or becoming more involved, that's pretty easy to do through a sponsorship. That also has benefits in terms of the tiering, and we can easily share that information and get that out to you, and then come back around as a sponsor if that's something you're interested in. We also have affiliate training partners. So if training is something you need, or your organization needs, or you yourself want to get more involved in this, there are several that we have affiliates with, which does allow us to access this training through a reduced price. So if that's something you're interested in, that is definitely an avenue to explore through the webpage. And then organization level partners, and the tiering and the costs, or the sponsorship level dollar value for that, if you're so inclined and want to continue to bring your company or get your company involved with exposure, and or you yourself as that representative from the firm to get involved either through the committees or through some other avenue with the organization. As we mentioned early, these are the subcommittees. You can volunteer for any or all. There's no number limit on these. If there's an area of interest, by all means, Regina is the contact for that, and we will get you connected to the right area of interest and get you part of that committee, and get you invited to all of the meetings and all of the goings on with that committee. So I know I'm running a little bit long here. So just for upcoming events, April 5th, we have a webinar, an hour-long webinar on extreme weather. If you are attending the Ohio Stormwater Conference, we have our MS4 boot camp, which is the day before. So that would be Wednesday, May the 5th. And then the conference itself runs Thursday and Friday up at Kalahari in Sandusky. So a full hour and then some But again, thank you, John, for your time and effort putting this together. And thank you all for attending and participating. And we hope to see you soon on the next webinar. Thank you much.